We've all heard of the famous Krabby Patty, and I don't know about you, but I've always wanted to walk into the Krusty Krab and buy a real Krabby Patty, and not just one of those fake gummy ones you get at restaurants. That's why today, we're finding out what that would be like by realistifying the Krabby Patty. Now, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and let's get drawing. I'm going to be using this reference, and I'm going to try to stay as close as I can to the recipe, which also includes tomatoes, lettuce, etc. I started like I always do by sketching the outline, but this time I did it in color. I don't know why I did this, probably just because I thought it might be more realistic, but I don't really know. Anyways, I drew the rest of the bun and cleaned up some of the outlines. Now I'm gonna start working on the lettuce, making sure to draw each squiggle carefully. After I'm done, I adjust some of the lines. It's officially time to start working on the tomatoes, starting with the one on the right. I work carefully in order to get that perfect tomato shape, if you know what I mean. Then I make the second tomato the same way, but a teeny weeny bit smaller. For the cheese, which is an essential part of the Krabby Patty, I basically just made 3 triangles sticking out. Yeah, that's it. Forget what I said before. This is the most essential part of the Krabby Patty. You can't really have a Krabby Patty without a patty. Last but not least, I drew the second bun. I also came back to the patty to fix up some of the lines. After adjusting some things and adding some finishing touches, I was done with the drawing. I finally finished the outline. I really like the oversized bun and the lettuce. I like all the curves on the lettuce. So without further ado, let's get into the coloring. I started with the bun as usual, using a similar color as the outline. I didn't like the color at first, so I switched it out for a lighter shade. Alright, for the lettuce, I used a really bright green. But once again, I didn't like the color and had to change it for a darker one. When I finished the lettuce, I moved on to the tomato, again using a lighter red than the outline. Now it's time for the cheese, and I'm doing something a little different this time. Instead of just making it lighter, I'm changing the hue slightly towards the red. Then as usual, I colored it in, then moved on to the patty. I changed it to a darker brown because I thought it contrasted the cheese a bit more. But when it came to the bottom bun, I struggled so much to get the right color. Don't ask me why I didn't just use the same color as the top bun, but I eventually came to my senses and used the same color. Finally, I finished the grueling task of coloring, and I think it looks fine. But it's time to shade this bad boy and bring this all to life. This is my favorite part of the drawing process because it really just brings it all together. You really just have to play around with it a bit to eventually get a good result. I used a different brush than I usually do to give the drawing a little bit of a different feel. I used so many different shades and colors for the shadows and highlights, which I'm not sure is a good thing or a bad thing, but all I know is that it turned out good in the end. For the lettuce, I literally just placed down some highlights in spots that I thought it should go. I had no real order, but again, it turned out fine. Then I moved on to the shadows and put them under pieces of lettuce that would be casting shadows on other pieces of lettuce. I also just put some under random spots and under the bun. I layered more and more shadows and highlights to make it more realistic and better overall. Oh, and I went back to the bun just because I'm a perfectionist and didn't think it looked good enough. I worked on shading the edges of the bun to give it a little bit more depth, and it took me a little bit to blend that all out, but I eventually moved on to the tomatoes. I used a darker and less vibrant red for the shadows. At first, I shaded the top where the lettuce would be casting a shadow, then I shaded the sides of the tomatoes. I used multiple different colors to get a kind of gradient, and yes, I know it doesn't look that smooth, but that was the vibe I was going for. I also added some highlights near the center and rims of the tomatoes. After blending that all out and adding a bit of finishing touches, I went back to the bun again. Okay guys, I lost some of the footage for these parts, but I still have a little bit from like the patty and the cheese and the bottom bun, so here it is. Now I'm adding some sesame seeds to make it a little bit more authentic to the Krabby Patty. I also added a quick background, and finally, we transformed the Krabby Patty into something that I would actually want to eat. And if you want to see another video like this, you can watch this one, or even this one on my channel page.